We are holding the final conference for the Team Populism project. So can you please tell us a little bit more about it?
Yes, so with the leadership of Aaron Jenny, we applied for a grant at Central European University. We've got this intellectual themes initiative that funds research projects, and they gave us a little money to study populism, basically. And this project is coming to an end slowly, and this is kind of the capstone conference where we're actually starting to present some of the results that are coming out of the project. Now, I cannot say that we have all the results, because usually when these grants are over, that is just the beginning of the work, but we are presenting some of the research already.
And The Guardian was here too, represented by the special editor for some series you have been doing. Can you please tell us a little bit more about it?
Both Aaron Jenny and I are in an international network of researchers called Team Populism. So I recommend everybody check out the website, the Team Populism website. It's a great international collaboration, and Team Populism is headed by Kirk Hawkins. He was approached by The Guardian to discuss the possibility of doing a series or working together on a series on populism. And this series did materialize, and we have contributed greatly to provide the scientific foundation for the series. And we are just incredibly excited to be able to get our research out to such a broad audience. And of course, some of the theme of this conference yesterday was to get collaboration between practitioners and academics to better either inform the public or have better impact of our research, and just to understand what we need to do to have better impact of our research. And I was very excited to have The Guardian here helping with that.
The series was quite popular. What was your contribution for that?
I think people are generally interested in populism, so I'm not that surprised that the series was so popular. We were able to contribute some great pieces. So I have been working on the measurement of populist attitudes, and we did an article. I think this was the most successful piece of the 84 article series, which was just titled "How Populist Are You?" I recommend everybody Google it if you haven't seen it yet. It asks a few questions that we developed for measuring populist attitudes, and then it shows you, as compared to other politicians, how populist are you personally. So it gives immediate feedback to the people reading it. They can get informed about what are the kind of things that drive populism and also ideology, and show them where do they stand on this landscape. Like, where Donald Trump is quite populist, Hugo Chavez is very populist, and Macron is not populist at all.
Right. And what about Trump?
Trump is so we had another piece with The Guardian, which is quite interesting. That's actually coming out of a book I just finished with Kirk Hawkins. It just came out. It's titled, I believe, U.S. Populism in a Comparative Perspective. And what we find is that during the campaign, so the 2016 campaign, Donald Trump was actually not that populist. I mean, he was in line with, let's say, Viktor Orban or Silvio Berlusconi, but wasn't as populist as Hugo Chavez or some of the Latin American populists at all. So we wondered what was going on. So we started looking at his campaign speeches, and we found an interesting discrepancy between the speeches he does off the cuff and the speeches he reads. So we believe this discrepancy. I think people would think that, well, if he's much more populist when he's just speaking by himself, but that is actually not true. One of the key elements of populism is this people-centric notion that the people are great, the people are the people have the power, etc. And Donald Trump isn't that people-centric in his rhetoric. I mean, if you think about Donald Trump, I think most people would agree that he likes himself very much. He's a little bit less concerned about others, and this very much was visible in his speeches when we looked at his speeches. And we had one of these Guardian articles kind of showing this with quotes and videos, and showing the differences between how Trump is less populist when he's just speaking by himself, but when it's his speechwriters writing the speeches, then he's much more populist.
That's an interesting finding. It's interesting to see this very large collaboration between journalists and academics. What were the key challenges in doing this collaboration, basically?
Yeah, it's rare. So we don't work together. So academics write their papers to each other, and it gets read by maybe 1,000 people. It gets cited by 100 people. So hearing that our little quiz got filled out by 1.5 million people is just unbelievable on an academic scale. The number one difficulty, of course, was finding out how horrible we write. Very often I sent a sentence or two to the Guardian, and 2 minutes later they sent a couple sentences back completely rewritten. There's not a single word left in there. They convey the same thing, and it's just so much better. So I think that would be the first challenge, is just a reflection of how little we think about being understandable as academics, and how we should do more of this. So I think that was the number one challenge. But also there's differences in culture. So academics credit each other. We talk about how all these work was in the past that we build on. So I mean, we move forward because we stand on the shoulders of giants as academics, and we have to give credit to those giants because it's their work that we're drawing on. Like the Guardian, it's all about what the reader wants to see and nothing else. So let me give you an example. There was an article about conspiracy theories, and I already have an article on conspiracy theories. It's only studied in the U.S. In this series, we were able to study it in 12.5 countries, and I wanted to sneak something in there that, well, we looked at this already in the U.S. and it's so great to find it in so many other countries, and that was the first thing that was slashed by the editor. Too wordy, too long. What you want to say, you don't need so many words for, and of course it hurts because I want to give credit to my own work, right. But it doesn't work that way, and I understand why it doesn't work that way. Actually, The Guardian has been really, really wonderful. So all of these articles are accompanied by these technical notes where they describe in a more precise detail of what was done, and in those technical notes we got the credit. And I mean, we're used to crediting each other in footnotes. That's kind of the way we do it in academia, so this is not a problem. So kind of in these technical notes hidden from the people, but it's there. We were able to make sure that everybody gets the credit that they deserve. So.
When it comes to studying sensitive democratic issues such as populism, this type of collaboration, would you say that is needed?
Well, I think in this very specific instance, one of our frustrations with populism research, and this is also in the academia, this is not just in the general, but definitely also in general, is that populism is this concept that people just throw around when they don't like something. So, oh, that's populist, and no, that's not the case. This has been studied for decades, going back to Latin America, even before it was a big thing in Europe. We have a very good idea what populism is. We have it very systematized. We have it, we know how to measure it, and a lot of the things, like Donald Trump, like he's not that much of a populist, actually, like as we just described. I mean, he's missing one of the key components of populism, and that is people-centrism. So when people are running around calling everything populist, it's very frustrating, because I'm like sitting around here and like thinking that they're just ruining these concepts I want to work with. People understand this less and less as days go by, not more and more. That's not a good thing. I think having this collaboration really helped systematize and explain to the people what really populism is, because when people think of populism, something they just think of nothing else but radical right or radical leftist ideologies, and they just throw around populism because they don't like it.
Populism has been largely studied, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. What are you studying right now?
So one of the things I was very much interested in is how stable is this populism thing on the attitudinal level. So populism historically has been mostly studied on the elite level. They were looking at politicians, how populist they are. But some of the definitions that we have been working with and are becoming more generally accepted in the field allow us to transport this concept of populism into the masses, and trying to see how each individual voter, how populist they are in their thinking. And we call this populist attitudes. And one of the things I was interested in is this populist attitude thing. Can this be like changed or influenced or activated or deactivated? Because that would be very important to understand in terms of messaging and how politicians should counter populism, or even if you're a populist, how you could be very effective as a populist politician. Though I don't want to encourage that line of that line of inquiry. So I started exploring this topic, thinking that actually populism is probably quite stable. It's not going to be moving around much. So maybe we should be looking at the consequences of populism, like how it polarizes, how it creates radicalization. But we really needed to verify that this is the case, that populism is very stable. So I had a colleague come to me and say that, hey, I have data in Spain on the same people for several years. So let's look at, they ask him every year some populist attitude questions, and let's see how they respond to these questions. Are they really stable? And it turns out they're not that stable. In fact, there is a very strong downward trend in the Spanish data from 2014 to 2017. So we had 4 waves of the data. And it's interesting because during that time, we had Podemos rise from basically nothing. Our first data collection was when Podemos was just founded. There was only 5% support of Podemos, which is a populist left party in Spain. So this populist phenomenon just rose in Spain. And what we see is populist attitudes are decreasing. So what I'm trying to figure out right now is this something that is a rule that once the populist supply goes into the political system, then maybe people chill out and they just become less populist. Oh, okay, no, the politicians are hearing me, so I don't need to be that populist anymore. Or maybe the mechanism is different. Maybe some people really don't like this populism, and they recognize these survey questions and say, oh, no, I'm definitely against those. That sounds like Podemos. So I would like to see in my research now, is this something that's going on? So we named it the thermostatic model, because if the populist heat goes up in the political discourse on the elite level, then people chill out a little bit, and vice versa potentially. So we, with The Guardian, actually, we collected data on 20 countries. And now we're trying to see if there's a relationship between how much populism is in their political system as opposed to how much populist attitudes there are. And we're going to follow this up by experiments. I mean, even the survey data collection is a little bit problematic because we don't have very good data for some of these countries. If there's populism in the supply level, maybe we have some data on if the political leader is populist, but not the other parties. So we're gathering data right now, trying to see what the dynamics is between populist supply and populist attitudes.